Good evening. We're glad to see all of you here for tonight's program. This program is presented in partnership with the Santa Cruz Public Libraries on the library's Zoom webinar platform. Thank you to library staff members Sarah Jones, Jessica Goodman, and Victor Willis for your assistance. As many of you know, Society volunteers have been staffing the desk in the genealogy room at the downtown library. We hope you will help us to fill the staffing schedule by becoming a volunteer staffer. Contact Judy Donaldson to sign up as a staffer. We also invite you to come to the library to use our comprehensive genealogical reference collection during library open hours. Just a reminder, patrons must wear face masks at the library regardless of vaccination status. The Society's DNA Special Interest Group held another session earlier today, and we will hold the next meeting of the DNA Special Interest Group on December 7th, 2021. Look for reminder notices about the time and place of the next DNA session. The Society's Irish Special Interest Group met on October 28th via Zoom. Sean Conley led a wide-ranging discussion that touched on many subjects, including Irish names, Irish place names, and Irish research resources in California. Look for future notices about the next meeting of the Irish Special Interest Group. In a moment, I will introduce tonight's speaker. First, though, I want to let you know about upcoming programs and society activities. In December, we will hold our holiday luncheon in lieu of a regular program. The holiday luncheon is scheduled for Thursday, December 2 at the Crow's Nest Restaurant, beginning at 11:30 a.m., with lunch to be served at noon. Our members should have received a recent email announcement about the luncheon. The cost of the luncheon has increased this year due to price hikes that had to be instituted by the restaurant. The cost of the luncheon is $40 per person, which includes salad, entree, non-alcoholic beverage, tax, and tip. Dessert, sadly, is not included in the cost this year. We will again be collecting canned foods and warm socks to donate to the St. Francis Soup Kitchen. Bring a guest and show them how much fun we genealogists can be. We hope to see you there. Please send your luncheon reservations to Mike Epperson before November 22. As we previously announced, we are resuming in-person programs beginning in January 2022. I plan to continue our tradition of starting the new year with a genealogically oriented writing program. So pack your mask, your pencil and notebook, and mark your calendar for Tuesday, January 4th. We'll be meeting upstairs at the library meeting room at 1 p.m. on the first Tuesday of January. On Tuesday, February 1, we will hear a live in-person presentation by Stephen Morris on how we can best prepare to use the 1950 federal census upon release of that census next spring. Many of you are familiar with Stephen Morris and his wonderful one-step genealogical tools, so you won't want to miss this program. Finally, I hope all of you have marked your calendars for Saturday, March 5 from 1 to 5 p.m. to help us celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Genealogical Society of Santa Cruz County. The event will be held at the Museum of Art and History from 1 to 5, and we are looking for volunteers to create genealogy-themed displays or storyboards to make this event memorable. If you would like to show the community and our members how successful you have been in your genealogy research, this is your chance to display your family roots. If you are interested, please email staff, that's S-T-A-F-F, at scgensoc, SCGENSOC.org. Attention Leslie Losi, or call Leslie at 831-214-3100. Tonight, we are pleased to be joined by Terry Jackson. Terry's family has been submitting family histories to what is now called FamilySearch for many, many years. As that information has come online, it has provided lots of interesting stories and has helped to clear up some family mysteries. Using some examples from his own research, Terry will demonstrate how FamilySearch can help us with our own research. We will also look at some fun things that come with a free FamilySearch account. Terry Jackson is a retired social worker who now spends his time fishing or finding more questions than answers in his genealogical research. Terry is a descendant of Mormon immigrant families. His paternal grandmother's parents arrived in the 1890s. His paternal grandfather's forebears came in the 1850s. Terry's maternal line stretches back to the early 1600s in Virginia and New England. His maternal ancestors were early converts to Mormonism and were among the first Mormon settlers in what became Utah and Idaho. All the family lines that Terry has traced from the United States have gone back to English, Scottish, and Irish roots. Terry is a 35-year resident of Seaside. Please join me in giving Terry a warm Zoom welcome.
Hi, folks. That's a nice introduction. Thanks, Gail. I'll go ahead and explain a little bit about my focus on how I do my research. I'm not an expert on FamilySearch. I use it a lot, and I think that's why Gail asked me to do this class. I was a little nervous after she told me that you had Kathy last month and you've had Janelle before. They both really impressed me. But let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. So FamilySearch and how I use it in my genealogical research. I have to click share. Okay. Okay, so again, I'm not an expert. I'm just a person. I'm not the person who would do a roundup presentation on the subject. I've just found it to be really helpful. After the last time I retired, I started to get more serious about doing my research. Before that, my cousins had done a lot of it. They gathered information about our Mayflower families, our Revolutionary War ancestors, lots of stories, and they had written and published some information about different family members, found stories about them. There were four family mysteries that I was looking at when I started into this about 6-7 years ago, or at least started with some real interest. We had the family stories of a Native American ancestor. I think a lot of folks have had that. Had the Mayflower connection, a Revolutionary War veteran, where are Tan Ann and Betty June. These are two of my cousins that when my uncle and his wife divorced back in the 50s, moved off to Oklahoma, and I hadn't seen them since then. And of course, there's always, I think, someone has a surname from who knows where. And I certainly had one of those. Sometimes when I was trying to do this research, I felt like this. I wound up with a headache, and it's because I felt like I was pounding my head against a wooden pole. The way I started was I did DNA through 23andMe, and that helped a lot. Gave me thousands of cousins. I tried triangulation. I tried what are the odds, but I found that I needed a program that gave me a path from that cousin up to a common ancestor and then back down to me. Because I have a lot of information stored in FamilySearch, I decided to go that route. So I got into FamilySearch.org. I updated my membership there. I started searching. I found two main programs that really were valuable to me: the family tree part and the memories part. So when you first log in to FamilySearch, you'll see this screen. And up at the top, you have family tree. And then over here, memories. And again, those are the ones I used a lot. I'll try to explain some about the search features. I'll touch on indexing a little bit, but not much. I've got some references in the handout that explain those better. Well, let's look at the family tree part to start. Okay, if you click on family tree, this takes us to family tree, and I slid it over one from me and put my mother and father's tree. So we're looking mostly at this, well, we are looking at deceased folks. So this is how typically you look at your tree. And this is the landscape. But it also offers the bells and whistles. You can look at a portrait. You can look at a fan chart. And the fan chart, if you look over here to the left, you can sort it in all these different ways. Research Helps was a new one to me, and I still don't understand it. That's going to take me some time. You can also look at a generations chart, and this can be helpful at times. Sometimes it can get a little cumbersome, but this is from James Keller Dailey on down. So this is my mother's side. This is my great grandfather on my grandfather, my mother's father's. It's probably my mother's father's father. Yeah, I've got lots of relatives in there, and sometimes it confuses me. Okay, so we'll go back to memories now. There's two ways to get into memories. One is through the family tree. The other is to click up on this top line on memories. You click on memories, it takes you to this screen. I chose people. The overview will tell you all about what this is. Gallery is a personal place, and I'll show you that later when we get into the live portion of looking at family search. And find is just searching for different people in there. But if I click on any of these people, it will show me the memories that are in their program. And we'll get into that in a little bit. If I don't know who they are, I can click down here on View My Relationship, and the program will tell me how I'm related to that individual. And again, we'll get into that in just a bit. So now, how does this help me with my DNA programs? So when you go into 23andMe, well, here are the options for close relatives. All people, close relatives added by me, not attached to family tree. So these are the different options you get when you go over to close relatives and scroll down. For the close relatives, you can sort by last name, first name, and birth year. If you go to all relatives, you only have name, I think, or birth year. Okay, so the DNA. First, we're going to go into how you get into memories through family tree. So I'm going to pick my grandmother, Hattie Fidelia Hurd. I click on her, and I get this screen, this picture. Has tree or person, and then up here, sources, memories, and collaborate. So if you click on memories, that takes you here. The first thing on memories is photos. If you scroll down one from this, then you get into documents. And I'll show you how I added this middle document here. I added the one on the left also, but we may not get into that. And if you notice here, there's upload document and select from gallery. So gallery, again, is a personal space. I'll show you that when I get into my live screen. If you go down from documents, you then have stories and audio now. You can add audio and upload audio to the site. Okay, so how does this help now with 23andMe relatives? So I go into 23andMe and I find a cousin in there. I click on relatives. That takes me to a list. I can scroll down through that list of names, click on a relative, a lot I know, many more I don't know. But I can click on that relative and it'll take me to a screen with some of their data. It'll show me how we're related, how many centimorgans. It'll show me information they put about themselves in the heading. I can scroll down, and if they allow it, it'll show me where a comparison of our DNA, where we match. Scroll down a little bit further, and it gives me this screen. And above what you can see here is maternal grandmother's birthplace, paternal and maternal grandfather's birthplace. Then paternal of both, other ancestors and surnames. A lot of folks leave all those blank and they aren't much help at all. But this lady, in fact, did put information, and the surnames has become a real valuable tool for me. Sometimes if I know where the individuals were born, where the grandparents were born, like in her case, if I could show you the maternal, that's where I come in. And that'll have some crosses with mine. But down here in family surnames, if we look at hers, she has Babbitt and Chapman. I have Babbitt and Chapman. So then I go to FamilySearch and I go to my Babbitt Chapman couple. I click on their tree and I look at their descendants. And what I was doing was going through all their descendants, looking for a surname that their children, one of their children would have married into that matches a surname of this cousin. And what I found was a Babbitt Chapman daughter married a Meekum. So then I went to this Babbitt Meekum couple and looked at their descendants. And sure enough, a Meekum daughter married an Ackerman. Well, that put me pretty close. So I'll show you what I found now. If you look here at all these names, all these surnames, those are the 8 surnames that my cousin gave me. And as I go down through, I can see where we get down to where this says add a child is where my cousin would be. But I know that now. I'm pretty sure of that. But if I go to memories, I might find some more information. So I clicked on Ethel Ann Meekum. And I found under sources in her file, there was only one memory, and that was, I think, a picture. But I went to sources, I found an obituary. To the right, I can click on the original. I can view that document if it's loaded up there. This one has. And I could read the obituary. But this one's been indexed. So over here to the left, I have all the information. And it may not include everything, but it's usually pretty good. I haven't gone lower than this because, again, there's some living people there, and I didn't want to put those folks out. But one of the people below this that is shown as Ethel Ann Ackerman's daughter is, in fact, the same 23andMe cousin that I was looking at. So there's my proof of how we're related. And I can put that then into my own database and show where we're related. And again, that was part of my interest back when I started this, was finding all these cousins and how I was related to them. Now, sometimes you get into a program, into a cousin, and sure enough, nothing. So this cousin G, didn't put anything. Here's the maternal grandmother, maternal grandfather, paternal. He put US, which is very little help, and no family surnames. So if you go down a little further, you'll find a place where you can look at your common cousins, common relationships. And this will show a list of individuals that we are both related to, how I'm related to that individual, and how this cousin is related to that individual. I went through that, and what I found for G was he had a brother who had also taken a 23andMe test. And lo and behold, the brother was really helpful. He listed all the information I looked for. So here's a Dailey Martindale, and I have a Dailey Martindale. So I went back and did the same process, looking at the family tree in FamilySearch, and then going down through looking for these surnames and how they married. And I finally found where this brother and his sibling and I match. What I found, though, was I needed a third-party software. It became a place where I could store that information. That I didn't want to put it online because, again, we're talking about living people, and you have to be sensitive about that. So I started using a third-party software. Also, FamilySearch does have some limitations. From Family Tree, you cannot download a GEDCOM file, but my third-party software will. It'll download, I can click on an individual there. I can download generations before, how many generations after, and then form my own tree in my third-party software. Also, it's a world tree, not always accurate, and changes can be made by people. I could go in fact, when I was starting doing this, I went in and I had a cousin, one who's done a lot of genealogy, had not entered her husband's death certificate. I found that, and I thought, well, I'll go ahead and add this in. I went in and added it. I went back to look at my good work, all happy, and I found out that I had added that death date to my cousin, who was very much alive. I tried to back that out, and nothing I tried to do it. So I called the number they give you in Salt Lake and explained the situation, and I'm sure they've not heard that before. They kind of snickered and said, we'll take care of you. And if you go back now, it doesn't look like anything happened at all. So I was thankful. I don't know that my cousin ever found that. At least she didn't get after me for it. Okay, some information that's not accurate that gets into the family tree. Remember, one of the things I was looking for was a Native American relationship. When I first went into 23andMe, it gave me a less than 0.1% Native American DNA, which for me was fine. It was some connection. But then as they updated their programs and refined it, that all went away. I'm 100% Great Britain, Northern Europe. But then in FamilySearch, I found this line, and this shows how I'm a descendant of Pocahontas. She's my 12th great grandmother. Well, I was happy, and all my granddaughters are happy. They're descended from a Disney princess. But there's a problem here. And again, this is it. You'll no longer find this line in FamilySearch. You go down here to John Fairfax Bowling and Mary Kenyon, that's accurate up to there. But if this Jane Bowling is their daughter, she was born when John was 9 years old and Mary was 5. Where this came from is called the Blue Bowlings. And I think it's because they showed up out of the blue. somebody back in the mid 1800s tried to link all his genealogy to Pocahontas, and found this one and thought, well, that's it, and published it, and it became lore. That it sat in FamilySearch for a long time, on the family tree. And what I've done is I put a link, if you're interested in looking at all into Pocahontas and how what really are her descendants, who really are her descendants. You can go to that link, it's in the handout. It's interesting reading. And I'll tell you, I have not shared with my granddaughters that they are no longer Disney princesses. I'm not going to go there. I'm too smart and too old for that. Okay, another area where changes are made. My grandmother always thought her mother was an Angelina Gibson. They migrated from England in the early 1890s. My grandmother was born a couple of years later. They settled in Salt Lake, where my great-grandfather's family had settled some years before. They weren't Mormons, because my grandmother was originally baptized in the Catholic Church. Well, we grew up thinking, Angelina Gibson was great-grandma. Well, it turned out that in England, a descendant, a great-grandson of Angelina Varney, had noticed that she was in the 1880 English census, but wasn't in the 1890 English census. She just kind of disappeared. And he went looking and didn't find much. So he did a DNA test through Ancestry. And lo and behold, he shows up with a bunch of cousins in Utah and Idaho. He searches more and he finds in his grandfather, William, the oldest of her 3 children by John Henry King, a letter from Angelina Gibson in Salt Lake saying, "Dear son." And then he got in contact with us. We're pretty sure this is, Angelina Varney was our Angelina Gibson. So we went through and changed all that on Family Tree. Well, some people didn't like it. And you had this, like this entry, Angelina Varney was from Nottingham and never left England. She was married to John Henry King and had 3 children. Well, that's true, she did. And the census records show that, birth dates show that. Of course, Angelina Varney never left England. What happened was across the river and upstream, a couple villages, Angelina Gibson shows up and marries Thomas Little. They then migrate to the US. And it's interesting, in the 1900 US Census, they list her name as Marie, and they put that they're all from Scotland. And in fact, I'm pretty sure they were all from England. Maybe 2 or 3 generations before that, Scottish, but not them. And they're from Nottingham. So this kind of stuff would go back and forth, where people would take it out and put it back. Another reason why I wanted a third party, so I didn't have to get into who was right and who was wrong. Okay, so FamilySearch, what they're there for is to document and preserve the family of mankind. So a little bit of history. For more than 125 years, FamilySearch has gathered important family history records. Many of those early documents came from LDS church members. So this is a personal history that my grandfather submitted back probably in the early 1950s. This is a family group sheet that he submitted probably back about the same time. Now, if you notice here, this is Milton Jackson, my uncle, and Ruby Kelly, his wife. They're the ones that, when they divorced, Tana Ann and Betty June went with Ruby. So we'll get into that in just a minute. Okay. So in 1894, the Genealogical Society of Utah was formed. They still exist, but they kind of branched off into what has become FamilySearch. And they formed so they could help organize and store these records. In fact, there's a picture you'll see in the websites that where they actually dug into the granite up in one of the canyons above Salt Lake and stored a lot of information in there. The next change came in 1938, and then they started filming paper documents. You had your microfiche and microfilm. Unfortunately, to view those films, you had to actually go to Salt Lake. You had to go to the genealogical library there and look them up. But then a change came again, 1964. The first Family History Center was opened. Now there's over 5,000 worldwide. And here now, you could go into the Family History Center, like the one here in Seaside. You could look at the information they had on index. You could pay some handling and mailing fees, and they would send this fish or this microfilm from Salt Lake. So you could then look at it on a on a reader and find your information, then they would send it back. Another change came as the computer started to come to be. In 1999, a website for FamilySearch.org was formed. I think the first thing they put on the website that you could search was the 1880 US Census. So now you have this website. Okay, the next thing, 2002, they start filming digital. Well, this is a big change because now you can start using more of the website. And in fact, I just read, and I think, and Gail pointed this out too, that they have finished microfilming or finished digitizing all the microfilm, and they're now starting on the microfiche. It's fun stuff because now that gives us our access and our information, or our way to see most of those documents that are in the website in the library. In 2011, RootsTech started. 2014, an alliance with several commercial genealogical providers to allow access and shared databases. Also, this allowed the different providers to specialize and put their resources into some special areas. So by sharing resources and then moving some of their own resources into special areas, they were able to develop a lot of different programs, all for our benefit, of course, and it does. Okay, so if you look over here to the right, this is my page in Family Tree. If I click on my name and my family tree, this is what comes up. So over here on the right, you'll see where you can search records. If you click on any of these records, it will populate from my information on Family Tree to these resources in their search engines, and it will then search, which really helps. Okay, so the Family History Library is the largest genealogical library in the world. FamilySearch.org is the door to most of the documents in the library. And if you think of that, if you think about walking in the door of a library, you can go look at lots of stuff. And this is a digital library, so you can go look at different things that are in there. And you don't have to belong. You don't have to have a sign-in or an account with FamilySearch to do this. You can sign on to FamilySearch and go look at some of this stuff. It's like looking at the dust cover of a book or seeing the title of documents they have. So when you log on just to FamilySearch, this is what you see. But if you scroll down without logging in, signing in, or creating an account, you just scroll down one, you'll find this. You can type in an ancestor's first name, middle name, last name, place where they lived, birth year, click search, and it'll take you to all kinds of fun information about that ancestor. You go down one more and click search, and it'll give you options to look at places, other documents, all kinds of stuff. But again, as you get to a certain place in that, it's going to tell you, if you want to look at this document or you want to look more into this, you need to get an account. You need to go further. Just like you need a library card when you go in that library to check a book out. You're going to need an account to actually go in and look. And two, in a library, there's some sensitive documents and sensitive books. They don't let just anybody in. You won't be able to go look at those. Online, there's, and I'll show you a book that's pertains to my family, but it's copyrighted. So you can't look at it online. And there's some other stuff that when you get into, it'll say, nope, it's not available. You have to actually go in to the library to look at. Okay, so Family Tree is a world tree. It's a roadmap to services. It provides collaboration and hints. Well, let's look at the collaboration part of this. And this is a really fun part. Okay, again, here's that history. Now I'm going to go looking for Tana Ann and Betty June. So I'm going to click up here where this says children under my grandfather, Charles Orlando. Everybody called him Orlando except his second wife. And she called him Charles. But it was with this tone of, Charles, you've done something wrong. I can hear it just 20, 30 years later. I can still hear it plain as day. Okay, so I click on children and I go down to Milton and I click on Milton. And this takes me to Milton and Ruby. I click on Ruby and it takes me over to her page and shows me some information about her. Well, when you enter data, when you upload a document, it shows who you are. Like this individual, this person down here on the right. If you click on them, it'll show you their email, and it'll ask if you want to send a message. Well, I went to Ruby, looked around her sources, found some likely people to contact, sent an email to one of them, explained who I was, what I was looking for, that I lost contact with my cousins and was interested in finding out where they were or how they were, and if I could get in touch with them. A couple of days later, I got an email back. We exchanged phone numbers, and I was talking to a lady who was a cousin of Ruby. She got my information a couple of days later, called back, and the day after that, I was in touch with Tana Ann. And sadly, Betty June had passed away in, I think, 2014. But I was able to find her obituary, and Tana Ann and I spent a long time catching up. We hadn't seen each other since probably 1955 or 56. And another way that you can share memories, and this is where I uploaded. So again, this is my grandmother, Hattie Fidelia Hurd. When my mother passed away, my sister got a framed picture of this picture in the lower left. This is when my grandmother was 16. She graduated from the 8th grade. And at some point in the past couple of years, the picture frame fell and got cracked. She was putting it into a new frame. When she opened it up, a small picture fell out. I'll show you that later if we have time. And a handwritten document fell out. Okay, so that document was this. And what this is a handwritten history that my grandmother wrote up to the point where that picture was taken. I think she wrote this probably sometime in the early 1980s. The information that's upside down here is from a baptism document that my mother and I found in the church archives in Salt Lake in either 1977 or 1980. And it's one of the two, because it's either when I was going to be stationed in Korea or when I came back. So I'm guessing that, and because Grandma included this in some of the information she wrote up here, like her birth date, the December of 1896. Everywhere else it's 1897. It's interesting too that she always maintained her birthday was the 29th of December because she remembered it being between the holidays. But what we found on the document was it was the 8th of December. And on this, when she wrote this in, she wrote over the 8th. She wrote the 8th initially, then she wrote over it the 29th. So, but it doesn't matter. It's up to Grandma. Okay, so I went to upload document. I clicked on upload document. This is in her documents section under tree. I clicked on upload documents, and that took me to my documents section in my computer. I found the document I wanted. I opened it, clicked open, and it started to upload. And the first thing I got over here was just processing. I clicked on I, and what happened is it's loading it up first to my gallery. And again, I'll show you that. Gallery is a place in your own program, unique to your account, where you can store pictures and documents that you're going to later upload to different individuals. So the first thing it did was it uploaded it there, and then there it is. This is usually PDF files where the pictures are normally JPEG or other photo sharing files. But I converted this to PDF, and I put the 2 pages, the front and back, plus then I inverted the second page, the back, so that the information she'd written upside down could be read right side up as a third page to that document. Okay, so another one of my questions and issues, and this is something else I went to search for. I'm in James Dailey. I went to his sources, and instead of memories, I'm in Collaborate. Memories are full of stories, all kinds of stories about this man. In fact, when I was preparing for this class, I wound up wasting a whole day just reading some of these stories because I hadn't seen them before and looking at some of the pictures. So under Collaborate, well, back step a little bit. James Dailey, D-A-Y-L-E-Y, is, if I find a Dailey today, whether it's in my, I could open the phone book and find a Dailey, D-A-Y-L-E-Y. I can go online and search for Dailey, D-A-Y-L-E-Y. Everyone I have found, all my cousins that show up as D-A-Y-L-E-Y cousins in my DNA, all go back to this one individual. I haven't found any of them that go back to anybody different than this James Dailey. Well, so I went down here and I was looking through collaboration and went down to discussions, and I found this on the bottom, name change, D-A-I-L-E-Y to D-A-Y-L-E-Y. So I clicked on that and I came up with this. And one of my cousins spoke to an Echo Dailey Jones about this name change, and she said that James Dailey had told the story that Brigham Young came to him when he was living in Nauvoo and said there's 2 James Daileys, D-A-I-L-E-Y, and the postmaster is getting confused. So I want you to change your name to D-A-Y-L-E-Y so the postmaster won't be confused anymore. Sounds like a good story. Now there's another story in there that talks about Dayley being an alternative spelling. But again, I haven't found any Dayleys that go to anybody other than this individual. And I like this story better, so I'm sticking with it. Okay, Mayflower. Again, this I can track in my family tree. Going back, John Tilley and Joan Hurst and their daughter Elizabeth were on the Mayflower, along with John Howland. In fact, John Howland's, according to the stories, got washed over and then washed back on the Mayflower during a storm. That they married. Neither John Tilley nor Joan Hurst survived the first year. They were part of that contingent that passed during that time. But the Mayflower Association can track and verifies down to Benjamin Chapman. My cousins have verified from Welcome Chapman to them, and I can, through DNA, trace back to Welcome Chapman and Susan Riley a number of times. I've got a number of relatives. Welcome Chapman was another one of those Mormon polygamists. So there's lots of folks. In fact, I found a cousin whose mother and father are both descended from Welcome Chapman, but different wives. The mother also ties back to three of my mother's four grandparents, such as life in Utah and Idaho. Okay, so I'm pretty sure on the Mayflower. Revolutionary War. Okay, so again in memories, I went back. I found Samuel Amadown, an ancestor, and went through and found this. That documents that he's a Revolutionary War veteran. Well, the first person I heard about as a Revolutionary War person was Thomas McBride. And he was killed in northern Missouri when the Mormons were kind of asked to leave Missouri. So here's an article on his site. It says the DAR were searching for his burial. He was buried in a well on the site of Hans Mill, which is since they can no longer find. But they were looking so they could mark the grave of Thomas McBride, Caldwell County's only Revolutionary War veteran. But they couldn't find it. So McBride fought for liberty under General George Washington and died fighting for his religion in the so-called Mormon War. Well, there's a problem with that. Here's Thomas White McBride, born in 1776. Now, be a little young. I can picture him carrying a musket, I guess, but that's a little young. But if we go back to James McBride and we click on him and we look at, there's no memory, so we'll click on sources. Lo and behold, here James McBride in the U.S. Revolutionary War rolls is the first one. View source, I click on that, and here's a URL, right down at the very bottom of the screen, but it's an Ancestry URL. So remember that agreement with all those other agencies in 2014? I click on that, and here it takes me to Ancestry. Okay. Now I have an Ancestry account, and I have other accounts, but I think that most folks could see this coming from Family Tree. So, but here's his Revolutionary War rolls documentation. Okay, the other picture that fell out of the picture that fell out of the picture of my grandmother that my sister was changing was this one. And on the far right is James Dailey. On the far left is John William Cooley. Okay, so John William Cooley's daughter married James Dailey's son, and I descend from that couple. The middle person is Solomon Parks McIntosh, no relationship. Well, I've had this picture, and I've never been able to figure out why there were three of them like this. So I went searching, and in Solomon Park's account, I found this. On one occasion, these three were Joseph Smith's bodyguards. So, that solved that mystery. Another mystery, and this one shows me that no matter how fancy the program, some programs just can't show you how relationships happen in families. This is a graduation picture for my grandfather from an academy in southern Utah. This is my grandfather. This is his best pal, Clarence Davis. Over here is Versal Cowley, his cousin, Laura, and his sister, Odetta. Well, the Cowleys and the Jacksons wind up crossing in both DNA and in my family tree. So I tried to track it down. And what I came up with, again, you can't find a program that does this. So here's Thomas Jackson, my second great grandfather. Wife Alice Crompton, from whom I descend, another wife, Deanna Burrows. So from Alice Crompton's Thomas Edward Jackson, who married Eliza Jane Shaw. That's my great grandfather and great grandmother. My grandfather, Charles Orlando Jackson, his sister, Maggie May. Maggie May married Franklin Emeron Wall, whose father was Francis George Wall, whose sister, Sarah Emily Wall, married William Michael Cowley. One of his sons was the father of Odetta and Versal. One of his sons was the father of Laura. Okay. His brother was Charles Caesar Cowley, whose son, Edward James Cowley Sr., married both Deanna Burrows' daughters, Linda Zilpha Jackson and Alice Maud Jackson. And to top all that off, then I found that Joseph Willard Cowley, another son of Sarah and William, married Mary Jane Shaw, who was the sister of my great grandmother. Again, I can't find a program that'll fix that one. Okay, so this is my grandfather and grandmother. They were married in 1913 when and Grandpa then immediately was sent on a Mormon mission to the Netherlands. Grandma goes back down to southern Utah where the family lives. She goes over to visit her in-laws. Clarence Davis, the person who was in the picture with Grandpa, is over visiting Grandpa's younger sister, Zilpha. They notice a rash on my grandmother. They call the doctor. The doctor comes over and looks at the rash and says, "Measles, you're quarantined." Great grandpa says, "No way that this young suitor is going to be here with my daughter for 2 weeks while we're in this quarantine." Calls the bishop, comes over and marries him on the spot. So this is Clarence and Zilpha on their 50th wedding anniversary in 1964. And so we're going to stop sharing this one, and I'm going to need to close that. Okay, but I'll go back now and we'll look at the live program. Okay, so remember I told you could scroll down, okay, enter information here and it would show up. Scroll a little bit further, start searching, it'll take you to another place. So I'm going to sign in. Okay. When you sign in, on the left here, you have hints. Over on the right, they'll ask if you want to volunteer to do different things. Okay. Then it gives a list of people that are recommended with hints. So I can click on this. And if I don't know who they are, I can click on View My Relationship. And this View My Relationship is all over. Almost every name you hit will have View My Relationship. and you can click on there and it'll show you how you're related. I go back, and John Slack is my fourth great grandfather. Now this is important because this is on my little line, and of my four grandparents, the littles I have the least amount of information regarding. And my grandmother again is the one I have very little, and that's one of the areas I need to search. Okay, so you go down. Bernice Joan Cash was my aunt, passed away just recently. Her husband was the other document. His obituary was a document in my grandmother's documents. Okay, people I've recently visited. Okay, a to-do list if you want to do that. Over here, it has things that have been recently added. Okay, so here's Clancy Eugene Hill. I don't know who that is, so I'll click view my relationship. This goes back through my father to Thomas Jackson. Hermione Jackson is one of my great grandfather's half siblings, and Clancy was her husband. If I go down far enough, and show more, here's Zilpha, and here's an article that was posted about their 50th wedding anniversary. And now we're going to look at this, one of the fun things you can do here. Try to compare a face. At my mother's funeral, my brother and I were talking. We looked over, and my uncles, my mother's two younger brothers, were looking at us, pointing and laughing. So we walked over and we asked them what they were talking about. And they said it was like looking at Terrell, my father, talking to Jimmy, their younger brother who had passed away some years before. So, who do you look like? Well, I'm fortunate and I've got a lot of pictures. So I can click here on compare a face. I can go down and I've uploaded some. So this is I'm probably 16 in this picture. It's from my high school yearbook. So I'm going to click view a comparison. And that takes me to my mother, 33%. My grandfather, 32%. Second great grandmother, and this is on my father's side. Jane Lawrenson's on my father's side again, another second great grandmother. My grandmother, my grandpa Dailey. Okay, so for fun, what I decided to do is then there's another picture. This is when I'm 22. This is my Vietnam picture. I'm a young Marine second lieutenant, and I've been a platoon leader. We've been out in the field for 3 or 4 weeks. This is after I was cleaned up. But I viewed a comparison of this to see where do I match. Well, this picture I match my grandfather. This is his father. This is my grandpa Dailey. Then my mom. Then my grandma Little. So I want to go back again. This is a picture of 3 or 4 years ago. View the comparison. Now it's my grandmother Little, then my mom, and so on. So I wanted to look at my brother. So this is probably when he's 19. He's in the Army. We were in Vietnam at the same time, but he never actually got in country. But he goes back 41% to our third great grandmother. And then and she's on the Daley side. Then he gets into Grandpa Dailey, great grandma Martindale, who's a Dailey, then my mom, then my grandma. I had to plug in my granddaughter to see who she looks like. And it's one of my granddaughters. She comes out matching my dad. So getting there on time. Let me go back to FamilySearch. I'll click into tree. Grandma Dailey and sources. Okay, so here's a lot of information. And she went to Canada when she was little and then back. My mother was born in Canada. But again, here you can see the people who've entered information. And I can click on them and that'll let me go look at how to contact them if I have questions. Here, view my relationship again, and then view tree. So I can look at her tree. And this is Grandma and Grandpa. Enoch Rhodes Dailey is another whole story to get into. That's just another whole interesting story. So let's look at James Dailey. I want to just show you some of the memories. Here's photos. Then you get down into Mormon victims, Pounds Mill, histories, letters, and stories. Just tons of information there. So let's go ahead and I'll stop sharing and we'll open it up for questions if that's appropriate now.
So go ahead and use that Q&A icon down at the bottom of your screen and enter any questions you might have. So down at the bottom of your Zoom control bar, you'll see a little Q&A icon. Terry, your first question says, what are the letters or numbers shown under a name?
Oh, cool. They have an index that identifies each individual. We'll go back to screen share and I'll show you. Now, I'll tell you right now that every time there's an entry for somebody, often they'll get a different letters and numbers. So there's a different path for lots of folks. I'll show you. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so here's the numbers. If you click on that, that's an ID, and you can enter that when you do searching, and it'll take you to this individual. See if I can figure out how I found my grandmother's. Okay, so we'll go under search. And I'll look for records. Okay, I'm going to look for my grandmother, Ella Rebecca Little. So I put in information, we're going to search. Okay, I come up with all kinds of information on her. Each one of these is actually my grandmother, but they will have a different number, and it's to keep people separate so that you may have the same name and similar information, but you can separate them. But what happens is this also can create duplicates. And I don't remember how I did it now. I clicked search for my grandmother Little, and I found one page of different numbers for her. It was about 20 on that page, and there were multiple pages. So every time someone found a piece of information, they would enter it and create a new Ella Rebecca Little file and give it a different number. In my third-party program, I can put this number in, and it will take me in FamilySearch, in Family Tree, to that person directly, so that I can keep track of the right Ella Rebecca Little. And that's probably not answering your question, but that's probably the best I can do right now. Anyway, it's just another way to identify who you're looking at.
Your next question is, do you have to enter or type in a tree in FamilySearch to be able to see their full array of sources?
No, no, you don't. You can, if you have an account, you go into FamilySearch, you can look at anything in that account. And you don't have to have a link to a tree. You can search for an individual. Like I could search for my grandmother, find her, click on her, and it will take me to her individual page. And from there, I can click on tree, and I can see the tree that they have for her in that program. So no, you do not need that. It's, again, you don't even have to have an account to look at a lot of the things.
Next question says, I don't understand where you put or write a quote unquote story. What kinds of things are put on there usually?
Hey, so when I could write in there, when I was between 11 and 12, and I could type this right in there. I grew probably 6 inches. I was 6 foot when I was 12. Between when I went from when I saw my grandmother next, she lived at a farm in Idaho, and I was living in Utah at that time. We went up the next summer, and I saw her. Well, Grandma was little. She was tiny. She would have me stick my arms straight out and run around underneath them. Every time someone came out to the farm, she would do that. So I could write that as a story, a memory of my grandmother. So that's the kind of story you can write there. Those little bits of information. When I was born in Idaho. When I was 6 weeks old, we took a train back to San Francisco when my dad was stationed in the Navy at the end of World War II. I have a picture of my mom and grandma, and they're holding me on one of the bridges up in Santa Cruz area, up in the mountains. So we're standing on a bridge there somewhere when I'm 6 weeks old. I could write a story about that in that area. So anything you want, anything that's pertinent. They do check to make sure it's appropriate and something that can be shared as a G-rated thing.
Your next question says, what is your third-party software?
I use Roots Magic 7. I'll transfer over to 8. Roots Magic is good because, again, I can enter that code, that alphanumeric code for a relative, and it will take me right to their site. I can then say, okay, download 5 or 6 generations before them, 4 generations below. Then I can load that into a family tree on Roots Magic. I can also then sync my Roots Magic program to my Ancestry tree, and I can coordinate between those. So I can download from Ancestry to Roots Magic, and I can upload from Roots Magic to ancestry. So for that, it's been extremely helpful.
And if you have any questions for Terry, please go ahead and put them into the Q&A. There's still plenty of time to answer any questions you might have. Says, will this program be streamed or repeated after this presentation? I missed most of it and would like to see it repeated. And yes, it will be posted on the Santa Cruz Public Library's YouTube. And so that go to santacruzpl.org, scroll down to the bottom and you'll find the little YouTube icon. If you click on that, you'll see it posted in the coming days. And we're happy to have you back after 46 years. The next question, Terry said, did you give a connection in getting from 23andMe DNA results to FamilySearch family tree and I missed it?
Yes, at the beginning. I had heard about 23andMe on the radio. So I'd heard about it on the radio once when I was driving for one of my jobs. And I decided to try going to 23andMe. I found all those cousins. Some I knew, some I didn't, but I needed a program. And I knew that I had a lot of information in my family tree through FamilySearch. So I then went. There wasn't a connection directly between 23andMe and FamilySearch. That was my connection. I was the connection for myself on that. Does that answer that?
Your next question says, I have an Ancestry account. What could I gain by also having a FamilySearch account?
FamilySearch is free, and it certainly offers a lot of data. Like I showed, the collaboration, you've got ways to contact folks. Now for me, I've got a church membership number, an LDS church membership number. And I know in our Monterey DNA SIG group, one of the members shared that they spend a lot of money for an ancestry account and for my heritage. I don't spend anything. That's part of that agreement. That agreement that they made in 2014. They get our access to the church's database, but church members can also then access theirs for free. Excuse me. So I think there's a lot of value just because it's more information.
Your next question says, what about people living in FS? Can you enter your DNA cousins into FamilySearch?
Yes, but only you can see them. That's why I was being careful about where I showed it, because in my program, I can see where I've entered my living cousins. Otherwise, no. It's just like any of the other programs. If you click, if you leave the default as living when you enter data, no one else can see them, but you can in your program.
And then you have a couple of thank yous, and it said, you gave me good information regarding using the DNA. I'll go back now and check my results and try them as you did. Many thanks.
Yeah.
Next one says, what if you are not a church member? What does LDS do with the information?
Well, some people worry that they would take all your information and go baptize your relatives. They don't do that. I haven't been active in the church for 30 years or more, but they don't do that. They just store it, and it's like any program, like Ancestry or like My Heritage, where you store information, you put information in, and people can come look at it, and if they can connect to it, great. If you can find a story of a relative, great. That's part of the fun of doing genealogy. And I do the genealogy because for me it's fun. I'm not as serious as a lot of folks. I don't have to document everything or dot all the I's and cross the T's. I'm looking for fun stories and connections. So again, that's why I do it.
Great. Thank you, Terry.
And let me say this, if anybody wants to contact me, I put my email address on the handout. If you want to contact me and have a problem, I'd love to try and solve problems. That's what's fun for me. If I'm not fishing or fishing with my grandkids, I'm doing genealogy. And I just really like this stuff. And I like the intrigue, the mysteries of trying to solve who goes where. I've done a lot of stuff on DNA Painter website. I really love that. I've got my siblings are all tested now. So we got 4 of us, and DNA Painter's got an inferred DNA program now that looks interesting. I'm going to start getting into. But again, it's fun stuff, and that's why I do it.
Your next question says, doesn't LDS do sealing of deceased people, for example, post-mortem baptism in the LDS church? Also, besides fishing, do you listen to KSCO?
No, I don't listen to that. But yes, they do the baptisms, but not, again, somebody has to submit it. In mine, it gives me a little, if you go across the top of my page, on the far right, there's a temple, and that'll show me temple ordinances. If I find someone that I want to put there, that I want to enter data for and have a temple ordinance, then they'll go ahead and do that. But again, you've got to put that in there to get them to do it. It's not something that happens automatically. At least they say it doesn't. And I know it didn't used to be. Back during my active years in the church, that wasn't how it happened. But people did worry about it.
You have a couple of other thank yous. Thank you. I always learn from you. And thank you for showing us some new ways to use FamilySearch that I had not thought of before. So Terry, everyone's enjoyed your program.
One of those thank yous was from Kathy Nielsen, who did your last class. And I learned so much from Kathy every time we are in a meeting together. So, I learned too. I learned from you folks. And again, that's part of the fun of this, is getting together and solving these problems.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the questions. Terry, any closing comments?
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Gail. I'll see you tomorrow.
And then there is a question, Gail, for you. Is the handout available online so that we can contact you? And will we be able to participate with the registry on YouTube? I don't think I totally understand that question. Gail, if you happen to understand it.
I understand the first part of the question. The handout is available at the website of the Genealogical Society of Santa Cruz County, which website can be accessed through the research tab and genealogy button on the Santa Cruz Library homepage. So look for the handout, and the handout also, a link to the handout is in the chat for tonight's session. So if you go up to the top of the chat, you can find the link to the handout there as well. And if you want to save the chat, you hit the 3 buttons at the bottom of the chat, and your option is to save the chat. So some of you may want to do that.
Gail,
I'm
we
not
also
sure I
put
understand the other part of that question.
Yeah, Courtney or Mary, if you could possibly retype that. I don't think that either one of us understand that. And for everyone looking for the handout, both Victor and I have put it in. So at the bottom of the chat, you'll see it.
Maybe Mary is wanting to know if this program was recorded. And yes, it was. And within a few days after editing, it will be available on the Santa Cruz Library YouTube channel. So maybe that I hope answers the second part of Mary's question.
You can find the YouTube channel by going over to santacruzpl.org and then scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the page. You'll see that little icon, and it has a play triangle in the center of the kind of cream colored rectangle. And if you click on that, that brings you to the YouTube channel. And then the Genealogical Society has a playlist of their own.
Thank you for explaining that, Sarah. And thank you especially to our speaker, Terry Jackson. We appreciated the detailed and helpful information Terry has shared with us this evening. I know I will be doing a deeper dive into some of the portions at FamilySearch.org that I have not previously used. Mr. Jackson has kindly permitted us to post a handout from his lecture on our website, which we just discussed. When you visit the Genealogy Society website, you will also find the membership application form there. If you're not already a member of GSSCC, we cordially invite you to join our society. Thank you for being with us this evening. Please join us again in person on the first Tuesday of the new year, January 4, 2022 at 1 p.m. in the upstairs meeting room of the downtown Santa Cruz Library. I'm Gail Burke, and I will be facilitating our program as we begin the new year with some genealogical writing. Be sure also to check the Santa Cruz Public Library's events calendar regularly to see what programs are coming up, including presentations by our Genealogy Society. As we close out our regular programming for 2021, I want to again thank Sarah Jones, Jessica Goodman, and Victor Willis for the outstanding encouragement, enthusiasm, and technical support they have given us in serving the genealogical community and our programs. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.